Today's webinar it's really open to anyone. So it's really just thinking about you might be within a leadership position, you might not be, you might be here for personal reasons, or you might be here for professional reasons. Now, today hopefully will help you no matter what your situation. So what I would encourage you to do is just kind of think about change, what change means to you, and just what you've experienced to really just help you think about things a little bit differently. And that's our aim for today, is just to try and get you to reframe that change. Now, just a couple of housekeeping bits and bobs. So, nothing for you to worry about. You just need to sit back and listen, but we will ask you to interact with us. So, what would be great to hear from you is in the chat. So, we will ask some questions. Although you won't be able to talk to us, it is quite interactive. So, we will be looking for your input as well. And we would welcome any questions as well. We've got a nice little handy resource for you to take away as well. So we'll make sure we pop that in the chat so you've got something actually to take away and do after the webinar to use all the top tips that we spoke about throughout this morning. So if you have just joined us, feel free to pop in the chat. Just let us know where you're calling in from. So what we're going to be looking at today is thinking about change, how you feel when that change happens. And we're going to be looking at Kubler-Ross's change curve. Now, some of you might be familiar, some of you might not, but don't worry, we will explain what that means and look and explore the journey you take when you go through any kind of change. Then we're really going to think about our energy, how we focus on thinking about what we can control, potentially the things we can't, but really thinking about there may be more than we initially think we can control. Then we're going to give you some tips and things to think about when you communicate. So it's trying to reduce that fear of the change, and it's really thinking about how you build your confidence. Now, before we get started into the nitty-gritty, what I'd like us to do is just take a pause for a moment. And I'm just going to ask you a question. And what I'd like you to do is just pop the answer to that in the chat when you've had a think. So, thinking about change. Now, this could be change you've experienced recently. Now, as I said already, this can be work, this can be personal. Think about what it was. But what I'd like you to share with me and Joe is how did you feel at the time? Thanks, Joe. Very organised this morning. And Joe, you can start to think about that for me as well. And then I'll come to you first if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Oh, yeah, I've got something for Lydia. So uncertain, difficult, hard to know where to start. Oh, I like that. Freaked out. Yep. I can relate to that. I like that, Esther. Excited. Rachel, anxious. Yep. What about you, Joe? What's your initial things that you've thought about?
Overwhelmed.
Yeah. What
Probably
made you
some.
overwhelmed?
Well, the change I'm thinking about was changing my routine when it comes to fitness, and didn't really do much of it before. And
Yeah.
I wanted to get a routine in, and at first it was overwhelmed. I was thinking, oh no, I can't do this. Very
Yeah.
fixed mindset when
Uh-huh.
it came to it.
Good. And I
So
think
yeah,
that's a nice personal example as well.
yeah,
Oh, we've got one there. Was it a purely a business? Yeah. And look, David, I understand it's quite hard not to take that personally because it sounds like it's quite important to you. Yep, scared and excited. Yeah. Look, I can't even imagine what you're going through in
and
Beirut, Antonia. And I think it's, yeah, you can't know what to do. And that's totally out with your control. So I can only empathise how hard that must be for you.
yeah,
And anxious, uncertain, ahead. Yeah, and I think that's an important, the execution, what does that execution actually look like? Sometimes it's maybe not knowing that can be the problem. Uncertain, nervous, defensive. I like that, Celine. Uncomfortable, but soon change to acceptance. Yeah,
yeah,
scared and excited as well. So you can see just from all of those different comments there that they're all very different. And I think that's the one thing we have to really think about when it comes to change. It's different for all of us.
yeah,
Yeah. And I think we will explore today how it feels. how we move through it. Because I think that's the key thing. We don't want to get stuck, and sometimes we might, but it's really just thinking about sometimes we might have more control than what we actually think. Now, Joe's going to take us through the principles of change and really start with that why.
Yeah, exactly. So it's such a great question to continue this discussion on is why is it so important to focus on this subject of change? Why is it important for us to go through change? Let's see what you think on this. Because
And
we're
look, this
already
can be
considering.
personal, can't it, Joe? And or business. Look, there is no right or wrong answer here, I think.
Exactly. Yeah. So whatever you're thinking about when it comes to change, think about why. Does it matter? Why is it important that you're going through that change? Progress. Yeah, definitely. This is how we get better and better is by pushing ourselves out of that comfort zone and how we get that progress. Change is the only constant. Yeah,
I
yeah,
love
you're right.
that. We talk about that all the time. That's one thing you can be sure of. There's always going to be change.
Exactly. It's not going
David
anywhere.
agrees. It's as if David read our minds there.
Exactly, exactly. It's not going anywhere. So yeah, that's why it totally matters. It happens all the time. It's constant. Change will always be reality. So it's better to embrace it and then try and fight against it. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right, Esther.
I love those block capitals.
We're all feeling it, yeah. Because it's how things improve and move forward. So you focus and you get adapt to it faster. Yeah, exactly. Like we're pointing out here, it's not going anywhere. So if we do focus on that change and support ourselves and other people through it, then we may adapt to that faster. Totally.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. So just to recap this then, standing still normally means falling behind. Because, like you've all pointed out in the chat already, things are going to move forward whether we like it or not. So, doing nothing is something that we can decide to do, but it's not always going to be a helpful decision in that moment. And at work, if you think about the work environment, change helps us move forward. It helps us respond when anything shifts within that work environment, which could be customers, it could be markets, it could be priorities. And it's how, as businesses, we stay relevant and keep moving forwards. And then on a personal level, so this is where it ties in with the subject I just brought up, which was fitness. It stops us getting stuck in old habits and old ways of working that don't really serve us anymore. It's something that I had to do on a personal level. Otherwise, that will totally be happening for me. I'd be just getting stuck in the old habits of not doing anything to help improve my body and my fitness levels and my health. And it also builds confidence because when you do push yourself out of that comfort zone and you do something new or something unfamiliar, that gives us that reminder that we can cope. Even if it felt overwhelming, uncomfortable at the start, it reminds us that we can cope through that and it helps build confidence when we come across future changes. And then it also helps create spaces to step back and reflect, which is so important and allow us to refocus, rethink what actually matters to us. We can do things differently and often even better than what we've done it before, rather than just keep repeating the same ways we've always done things. And when we handle change well, it will then improve results, whether that's in a work or personal basis. And it also makes that effort that we put in feel a lot more meaningful. And when we understand the why behind the change, that's where we can fully understand it and we can get behind it, feel part of it, and also understand how we contribute to that overall change. So while we're thinking about this, what I'd like you to do now is think about what usually gets in the way for you when change happens. What is it that gets in your way? So for example, I've spoke about the fact that sometimes I let a fixed mindset get in the way and I think I can't do this, I can't achieve this, when in reality I totally can. I just need to go for it.
Yeah.
There we
That fear of failure is very real. My key thing is think about that word fail, first action and learning. That's how I stop myself from thinking about that failure. And yet, look, emotions are real, aren't they, Joe? And I think what Rachel said there is it's that's the thing. We tend to feel it. Then we've got that anxiety.
Exactly, exactly. And then that can sometimes then cause us to halt in that moment because it can feel
Yeah.
overwhelming because of all of these negative emotions. Yeah, totally. And then we
That
get to the other
focus.
side and it
Yeah, I
becomes
can relate to
positive.
that. Yeah, I can relate to that losing focus.
Oh
That's
yeah.
something that's quite real because especially if you don't maybe understand what's happening at that point, or you could be frozen. Yeah,
Oh
where do
yeah.
you start? Yep.
Exactly, exactly. And it's that fear of the unknown that sometimes then ties in with that frozen feeling where we don't know what's going to happen. So we
Yeah.
become scared to move forward because of that unknown. And then the attachment to comfort and overthinking. Yeah, exactly. That's where we then pop into our comfort zone and not push ourselves. But one thing to recognize is in the comfort zone, we don't get growth. We have to really push ourselves out of that. But yeah, it's that fear of the unknown, the attachment to comfort. Pressure from family members and friends. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. This is it. And this is where understanding what we go through and everybody else around us goes through helps us not to only support ourselves, but also the people around us.
Yeah, I like that one with the habits because I think, yeah, the brain does prefer familiar. But I think, as Joe says, there are things you can do within your routine and that planning that does make it a habit because once it is a habit, it's real. And I think that's what can make change really good when it does become that.
Exactly. Exactly. Because when we're thinking about change, it can be big things or it can be smaller day-to-day adjustments. It's all change. And it's worth noting at this point that these areas are completely individual to you as a person. We're all different as human beings, and it's understanding that really helps within these moments. And part of that is something you may consider a minor change, could feel like a big change, a major change to somebody else, whereas something that they might not even notice might make it seem like your whole world's been flipped upside down. And this could be due to different impacts and different roles in work. It could be the fact we've got different values to each other as well. And it could be we've got different roles in our personal life. So it's all down to different experiences, and especially when it comes to our values as well. Because something important to you might not be as important to somebody else. And that takes us to this subject now, where we're going to talk about personal values. So, draw and change. One thing that is key, and we'll keep repeating throughout, is that you cannot control everything that's happening around you. But what we do have control of in every single situation is how we turn up, it's how we show up to that event. And this is where our values come in. So you can see you've got list of values on the screen, but you can also see that there's a box that says other. So these aren't all of the lists of the values, but it just helps you prompt some thought on what you think your top value is. So let's hear some top values.
Well, everybody's quick today. Lydia's right in there already with fairness, yeah. And look, it's really thinking about that's the thing, and you want that change to be fair for everyone, really. Oh, or it could be that autonomy with that change. Yeah, honesty, Rianne, that's exactly mine. And it's really thinking about that honesty piece for me. Look, just tell me what it is. It doesn't matter what it is, but I think if you don't tell me, you're not honest with me, how can I deal with it?
Exactly. And mine's integrity. So I can see that's popping off there, Tarek. So yeah, for me, integrity all day long. And then when I'm going through change, what helps me stay grounded in those moments is by making sure that I act in line of what I feel is the right thing to do,
Yeah.
even when those decisions may feel uncomfortable to me. That's what keeps me grounded and keep me moving forwards, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I love the fact that people have mentioned more than one because sometimes values can be quite conflicting. So I think it's looking at that, yeah, you want achievement and success, but you also want that peace and honesty. So for me, that really resonates. Yeah, and then Celine saying that challenge and courage or thoughtful and fairness from Rachel. So yeah, and I think that links with yours, Joe, as well, that fairness and that justified. We're not
Yeah,
just doing change for the sake of change. So that could link in really well there in terms of that justified piece as well.
Excellent. Exactly. And then courage is key. And you're right, lots of people are popping this up here. And drawing a change, what really helps us is having the courage to ask the questions and have those honest conversations. And you're going to see there's a little part of this session today that covers that. So yeah, that totally ties in with a lot of these values popping up there as well. Excellent. And that's what we're considering here is when things shift, our values can help us stay grounded in that moment because they work like anchors. And not because they stop that change from happening, they're not going to stop it. But what they're going to do is give you something that you can hold on to when those things are moving around us and things potentially feel overwhelming. What changes is how each of these values show up, and that's exactly what we have been having the discussion about here. So what I'd like you to think about now is how does your top value help you then? Help you stay steady when those things feel uncertain? To
How
think
does
about your
yours
value and
help
pop it
you?
in.
How does yours help then when you think about yours? Yours is integrity, you said, didn't you?
Yeah. So it just helps me then make decisions based on what I think's right in that moment. And like I said earlier on, it's not going to always be comfortable decisions. But what makes me push into the more uncomfortable ones is aligning back to that integrity piece. What is right thing to do within
Yeah.
this moment when it comes to change? And what about you,
Well,
Arlene? What
for
about
me,
yours?
I think, look, truthfulness is important to me, as you probably gathered already, and it's been truthful with myself. But I think I also need to be truthful with others about how I'm feeling as well with that change. Now, I think it's doing it in the manner that's right in terms of just thinking about my emotions, because I think when that change does happen, that's the hard piece, is to balance how you're feeling with that value. So it's really just thinking about expressing that, but in a way that's respectful to everyone else as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think that
Exactly.
links with what Rachel's saying there, it's showing that empathy to others.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that then lets you then be able to see it from their perspective, because like we've already pointed out quite a
Yeah.
lot, is that we're all different. So
Yep.
empathy is key in that moment.
Yeah. I like that autonomy piece from Esther, just owning that solution. Yeah. And ultimately, it will be the right outcome, as Lydia says.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. And then yeah, ambition to do things. So yeah, this is where we can fall back onto that value again when things do feel really tough. I know that we're going to have new achievements coming through here. Falling back on the reason for change. Oh yeah, definitely. And this is where it's key to understand the reason behind the
Yeah.
change, because then that helps you then be able to take everybody else on that journey as well in an honest way, which ties in again with other values. Excellent.
Love that. Love that. I think there's been really great things in that chat there, and I think it's really harnessing those values, isn't it, Joe? And
Yeah.
thinking about how we use these and not let them work against us. So it's just thinking about that behaviour piece for me. So just taking a pause to think about how that possibly might show up as well. Now, what we're going to move on now and look at is the change curve. So, as I said, some of you might be familiar with it. So, give me a thumbs up if you are familiar with the change curve. So, we're looking at the change curve from Kubler-Ross. Now, this is based on observations from life-changing personal events. So, it's the grief curve as well. And it's true as well when we think about it in a work context. So you can think about this in a work context, or you can think about this in a personal context. Now, on the screen, you can see the change curve, and you can see the different stages there where there's different types of emotion that people go through really when we're exposed to change. Now, there's three different phases, and don't worry, they are labelled right. So the ending phase is not, it's signaling the end of what you've known. So it's the end of what you're used to and what's familiar. Now, that has to end before something new can begin. And people start to disengage with what's happened in the past. But as we do that, we feel quite strong emotions. Now, that could be that initial, we're really in denial. No, this isn't happening. It's not changing, staying the same. But then we could get quite angry or quite resentful about being put through this. And sometimes you feel quite hopeless at this stage as well. And that can be no energy, no motivation, really. Then we moved in the neutral phase. Now, for me, this is quite dangerous, this phase. Although it's quite neutral, it can go one way or it can go another. Now, it's that in-between state that people can feel quite confused about. Some people might think, yep, I can move forward. Some people think, no, I'm a bit stuck. So, as well as being quite creative at this phase, it can be quite frightening as well. So, it's really just thinking about you might be excited one minute and you might not be the next. So, you might be quite frightened about, oh, or confused, or there might be that lack of cohesion because you're quite frustrated but you don't know how to change or stop those old habits that you spoke about earlier on, Joe, as well. Then when we move to phase three, so that's the beginning. So chaos starts to recede, and we always see chaos, and people start to feel energized. Now, this doesn't mean everything's going to be plain sailing from here. It just means that if we make some adjustments, and it's really important that we don't make lots of adjustments at this point, it's just letting these new things settle in and really focusing on what we should be doing, but teamwork. If we think about those comments earlier on, I don't know who said it in the chat, but someone definitely said teamwork was one of their values. So when we think about that teamwork from Cindy, there it is, that is the key thing, how we cooperate, how we set goals, and how we move forward together. Now, we're going to look at how we recognise which stage people are in by the types of things we might hear and say. Then what we're going to do is work together and think about what behaviours and actions that we might observe from this. So Joe's going to take us through some different statements. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in the chat for you and Joe's going to explain what we're going to be doing next.
Okay, so what we're going to have a little look at now is things we may hear as people are progressing through the different stages. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring a statement up, and then what I'd like you all to do is in the chat, tell me which stage they're at, choosing one of the ones that Arlene's just popped into the chat. So they can't do this to us, it's not fair. Which one of those do you think we're at if you hear that statement? So if you used to hear this from yourself or somebody around you, what stage would we assume they were at? Okay, got lots of angers coming through.
Oh, oh, we're getting some curveballs. One from Joe. Joe says anger or shock.
Oh yes, definitely. Okay.
Will I reveal?
Oh yes, let's do the reveal.
Yeah.
Yeah, excellent. Well done, Joe, for getting that in there. So, and yes, Suleiman as well. Well done. I'm sure that things will probably just carry on as they were before. Which one is this?
Oh, we're in quick with this one.
Yeah,
Aye, oh, yeah. I
definitely.
think that sounds about right, Joe.
Yeah, definitely. We're denying it. We're saying it's not going to happen. Yeah, that's it. So the next one, this is never going to work. Management just doesn't understand. Yeah, there we go.
Oh, that was a quick
That's even
turnaround.
more angry, that one, yeah.
Yeah, I think these are all right. I'm not going to dwell on that one.
Excellent. Why does it matter? No one cares what I think anyway. Which one do we think? Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah,
it. Why bother?
quite a lot.
Excellent, well done. And then the next one. So tell me a little bit more about what this is going to look like in practice. Which one do we think that one is? There we go. Excellent. Definitely
Yeah.
all awake this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are at this point in your day. And then finally, we've got, I think this is actually going to work out really well.
Mean process of an elimination, Joe. Yeah, I get acceptance. Like that
Yeah,
makes sense. That makes the same sense to me as what moving forward does as well. Yeah.
exactly. So well done. We've done a high level overview. What we're going to do now is we're going to go into each of these phases and the emotions that are tied into the phases in some detail now. So like we've just seen, the change curve outlines are those stages we go through during change. So what will we see then when it comes to ending? Let's think of some of the things that could pop up. when we're in this stage.
And I think you've identified some of these emotions already, I
Yeah,
think.
definitely.
So I think it's just thinking about what emotions we might see. Yeah.
Exactly. Upset, yeah. Yes, Rhiannon, thank you.
Think about
Yeah,
how
this
you
is
feel as well. I think that's really important. Think about those feelings and what have you seen in other people maybe as well? Like if you do look after a team, what have you team seen in term start again? What have you seen in terms of your team?
yes,
Frustrations, sadness, yeah.
sadness. Yeah,
Frustration, stress, yeah.
and this is all when we're saying goodbye to the old way of doing things. So
Yes.
we're going to see this coming through. It is. You're right, Celine.
Yeah.
It's the same curve we go through when it comes to grief.
It can be that numbness, like it's as if it's like disbelief at this point, isn't it? That you don't actually believe that it's actually happening.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, Fab. So when it comes to this, we've got a denial and shock. And this is where we've got that sense of shock and the disbelief and even maybe some numbness when it comes to it. And it'll include emotions such as confusion. So what does this mean to us? We could be feeling overwhelmed, which kind of tied into the example I shared earlier, where it's like, oh, this is now we're saying goodbye to something, we're having to change the way we're working or the way we're doing things. That brings overwhelmment. And the disbelief, this can't be happening. We're going to see some resistance and we're going to see some anger coming in here because that reality is going to set in now that there is no going back. And emotions may include fear. What if I can't handle this? So what if it's too much? Resentment, blaming other people. This is somebody else's fault that we're going through this. And then anger. Why is this happening? This is so unfair. And then also what we're going to come across is some bargaining. And this is where we're trying to soften that blow. And the way that we're trying to soften it is through some negotiation. So this is where hope may pop up. So maybe if I do a certain thing, they'll reconsider and this change won't happen. Guilt could pop up. So before we were thinking this is somebody else's fault, but at this stage, we'll also be looking at ourselves as well and thinking, did we do something wrong? And also a sense of help and helplessness could pop up here where we feel like we've got no control over anything.
Now, when we move through those emotions, we then move to that neutral stage. So, for me, as I said already, this is the most dangerous point at this stage. So, what emotions do you think we see at this stage? Oh, we did it at the same time. Sorry, Joe. Just realised.
So smooth.
And remember, this is the stage that's very dangerous. I can move forward, I can move backwards. Yeah, so there is that uncertainty. Because we're like that, oh, it's going to get better. Is it going to get worse? Confusion, yep, absolutely. You could be in a position where you've accepted it, but someone else could still be quite confused at this point.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, acceptance or not being able to accept. Yeah, and I think that that's the thing. Some people will be in that part that they're starting to gradually accept this is a new reality. It might be right, okay, this is happening. I'm moving forward. Yeah, Joe, there could possibly be that little bit of depression because you can't quite see a way forward yet, but other people might see that way forward. So yeah, I completely get that. Yeah, or could be a bit helpless, yeah. Cautious, absolutely, David, because you're like that. Well, we're not really doing it yet. It's just kind of happening. So yeah, cautious, but hopefully a bit optimistic. Maybe not a bit optimistic. Now, for me, this really varies this stage, and that's why I say it is the most dangerous because some people could be ready to kind of accept. Now, that doesn't mean they're at that acceptance stage. That just means they're quite curious. Okay, right, it's happening. Okay, I need to get on board. It might be that it's not getting any worse, And you're starting to think, right, okay, maybe I can get through this then. And you might be quite open to what that change might be. So if you're quite curious, then it might be thinking about, okay, so what are the new possibilities here? What could this mean for me? Could this mean an opportunity? Could this mean something I could achieve? But then you feel more optimistic. So again, this might be a good change after all. But you're more determined, so you're more determined to move forward. And especially if it is that change at work, yeah, you might be cautious, but you might be thinking, right, okay, what can I actually do with this? How can I actually move forward? But as I said, in some cases, you might feel quite indifferent. So you're really thinking about that change, right? What is it? What's happening next? And that's why we say you can go forwards, but you can also go backwards as well.
Fab. So the next one we're going to look at is now beginning. So again, the same question is what emotions are we going to see at this stage? What is going to pop up now when we get to the beginning? Relief and excitement. Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Adaptation, getting the best out of the current situation. Yeah, totally. So we're looking at it now. This is the new situation. We need to adapt, which can lead then to potential curiosity of how this all looks now. Moving forwards, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
This is where now we're embracing this new way of doing things. Change. Anything else pop in?
And look, sometimes this is hard to see if you're not there yet. I think that's the thing to bear in mind, that it does come.
It does. It does. And the kind of things that we're going to see at this stage is we've now acknowledged the change. We understand this is the new reality, so this is where you're going to get that acceptance coming in now. And then the relief will pop up here. We understand we've been through the most difficult part of the initial emotional turmoil that we're going to go through when it comes to change, like we've just seen. So we're relieved now that we're actually now through the other side. And it also will be looking ahead more now because again, coming into these emotions allows us to think a lot more logically and we'll be looking ahead and we'll see now the possibilities and the potential benefits this change is bringing now and that optimism for the future that it will be better. And then curiosity as well. We're going to see that because when it comes to the unknown, it can be daunting. But at this stage now, this is where we're getting more curious now about what the change can bring to us. And this is where we're so much more open now to exploring those new possibilities. And then determination's going to pop up here as well. And this is where we've got that determination to move forward and make the change work. And we're going to still have challenges. That's not going to end, but we're ready to tackle them and see those things through. And an important thing to probably note at this stage is that it's not a permanent state of positivity all of the time, but you've got a general state of positivity going on. But we could have occasional setbacks and those moments of doubt. At the end of the day, we're still human beings, and these could pop up. And those intensity of these emotions that we're feeling when it comes to this stage, everything that we can see is going to vary again, and it's going to be based on that individual. So some may experience a very strong sense of optimism, whereas others may be a bit more cautious when it comes to it, and are hopeful, but a little bit more cautious when it comes to it. A new beginning and letting go of the old way of doing things is a turning point for us. So this is where we've come to terms now with the change, and this is where now we're ready to invest all of that energy that is needed now to put in place the change and adapt to it and thrive in this new situation that we're in. And there are some points to remember. The change curve is not time framed. We cannot put a time on that of how long it's going to take for people to progress through. And it's individual to that person as well. So One person could move through it so quickly, and then another person could get stuck in a stage, and that could then swap over on the next moment of change, depending on what that situation is. That other person could now fly through it who got stuck before. So it's important to recognize that we are all individuals here. And when we recognize people getting stuck in that stage, and it could be us, it could be somebody else, we can step in and support to help people progress through. And then it doesn't matter if the change is positive or negative, we're going to still go through these different stages. And what you've got to really pay attention to is that middle stage, like Arlene just referenced then. This is make or break for us, the neutral. This is where we can end up moving backwards or we can get pushed through to the next stage. So, one thing that I think we're all aligned with is that change is a constant in life, definitely. So this is something that we've spoken about so much today already. And also what we're realizing here, it does trigger a roller coaster of emotions. Now we've got an understanding of the different stages that we go through. It's now a good point now to have a discussion on how we can deal with those emotions and navigate it for ourselves and also supporting other people around us. So one way that we can do this is when it comes to denial and shock, acknowledge the feelings, they're relevant, they are what you're experiencing, and do not bottle them up. Because what helps us is being able to talk through what we're feeling. And this goes with anything at all. The more that we talk through things with others, the better we feel about it. And it could be someone that you trust in your personal life, a trusted friend, family member. It could be a trusted therapist. And in your work lives, it could be a trusted colleague, a trusted manager. So don't bottle things up and allow yourself that time to process this emotion because when it comes to changes, especially the big changes, it's going to take some time to adjust. And if we try and rush ourselves through it, then this is potentially where we're not going to deal with each of these stages correctly and could end up getting stuck or even moving backwards again. When it comes to resistance and anger, express our concerns, but do it in a constructive way. So yeah, don't be afraid to voice our worries and talk about them again, because again, this is really relevant in supporting us through it. But the way we do that should be in a respectful way so that we can have these open conversations with people without it becoming overwhelming with emotions. We're going to identify what we're going to miss at this point as well. So acknowledging that helps us and also validates our feelings towards that loss. So it's important we process that. And then bargaining, though we can see if there's any room for compromise at this point. Although we're not going to be able to alter that change at its core, there may be things that we can negotiate with that makes it feel easier. So it's about at this stage explore whether there's possibilities for adjustment. And by focusing on things that we have got control over rather than focusing on the overall change that potentially we haven't got no control over, if we look for things that we have got control, it'll shift our energy into the right place then. And then when it gets to depression, this is where you seek support and don't isolate yourself. Talk to other people. It's key. And again, it could be loved ones, you could have a support group, and acknowledging our feelings as we're going through it. Don't try and bottle them up. But also, we don't want to dwell on it for too long. It is fine. It's perfectly acceptable to be going through all of these emotions, part of what makes us be human. So it's okay to feel sad and angry, but we don't want to let those emotions take over and consume us. So we should, as well, generally in life, but also particularly going through change, look after yourselves, practice that self-care. Because if we do, and we really look after ourselves when it comes to our body and our mind, then that is going to help us get through this easier. So it could be exercise, hobbies, anything that you do to help relax. That's what we're looking for here. And then when we get to acceptance, this is where we can now focus on the positive aspects of the change, looking for the benefits it's going to bring us as an individual, the company, our personal lives, our families, whatever that is, and looking for those opportunities for growth as well. And this is where we're reframing the way we look at it. And now what we're doing is looking for any opportunity within this change to learn and develop new skills. But remember, it's key to be patient with yourself, with other people, because this does take time to get through. And do not be discouraged if sometimes you take a step back. What's going to help you keep focused and keep pushing through this is celebrating whenever you have achievements throughout this. So even if it's a small win, celebrate it. Make sure you acknowledge it, no matter how small, because it's going to help us keep moving through this and keep focused on the future. So it's very, very important that we do that in these moments because it is important to learn from the past, but it's also important not to dwell on it for too long. We've got no um, influence on things that have happened on the past anymore, so we don't want to put too much energy on it. What we're doing is putting energy into the things that we do have influence on, and that is by looking at what possibilities now lie ahead. So understanding our emotions is key here for ourselves and for the others around us. And now employing these strategies is going to help you then be able to get through those emotions and navigate through the change curve, allowing you to have greater resilience when it comes to it and come out even stronger at the other side.
What I thought would be nice to take a wee pause here, Joe, and just really ask people. I'm going to pop a wee question in the chat. So, what things do you do to navigate those emotions, or what things could you do? So maybe Joe suggested things that you've maybe thought, oh, that would be a good idea if I do that. So you don't need to be doing them currently. It might be things you actually are doing that are really working, or it could be, right, what could you do differently? So I'd love to hear from you.
And the one key thing for me that helps me is really talking it through with other people and not bottling it up. Sometimes if I keep it inside, I'll make it into a bigger deal than what it actually is. And then I'll have a conversation and wonder why I didn't have the conversation a week ago.
Yep, I can relate to that, Joe, that you do that. Oh, Esther, I love that. I wish I had a beach outside where I stay.
Oh, that sounds lovely.
Yeah. Look, Rachel, need to practice taking a pause. Yeah, absolutely. Look,
Yeah.
I'm guilty of that. I'm getting much better, but I'm very guilty of that. I'll just react. And look, already, for me, I love exercise. Exercise really helps me, but I like a mix. So I was up at 5:30, not 5:20 this morning. I've been to Pilates, I've been back. So I'm feeling great. Meditation and basket. I love that, Tarek, because it's like one extreme to the other, so I can really relate to that. I love that. Yeah,
Oh,
Nadia, absolutely. Look, reflecting, don't underestimate the power of reflecting and
mhm.
actually think about it. Like I always ask myself, right, is that a feeling or is that a fact? And I think getting that down, I think is really important. Deep cleaning. Yeah, no, it's not weird. I do that as well. I can relate to that. See, I actually do more things than I think, Joe.
I do that as well. I was going to deep clean mode. Yeah,
I
totally.
love that. A wee cup of
Feels so much
tea and
better.
a biscuit. I love that. I would be coffee though. Dancing, love it. Noticing what I'm feeling without judging it, naming it, feeling it, letting it. Oh, I love that, Celine. Look, it sounds like a lot of you have got lots of great strategies. And it could just be, yeah, focus on the things you can control, Sylvia. I love that. Oh, see, it's as if you knew what was coming next, isn't it? So that's the thing we're going to do now is we're going to look at how we shift that focus. So for me, the change curve can help you understand how we feel, but what that doesn't answer is, right, where do I put my energy when things start to feel uncertain? And we can't control that change, as we said, but we absolutely can control how we respond. And that's what we're going to look at now, a tool that will help us focus. So just cast your mind back to the beginning when we said to think about that situation. So as I said, it could be work, could be personal. There's no right or wrong here. But what we want to think about is The circle of influence. Now, some of you might be familiar with this. This is from Stephen Covey. I am very familiar. If you've not read his book, Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, for me, it was quite life-changing in terms of reading that book and getting a balance of everything that's important. Now, for me, he talks about circle of concern, circle of influence, and the circle of control. And it really is important that you understand what matters to you, but really thinking about how much power you have to affect it. Now, if we look at that circle of concern, that's the biggest. So that encompasses everything, everything that you're aware of and worried about. So if we think about what's going on in the world just now, if we think about that war that we mentioned right at the beginning, the weather, your health, your relationships, basically that's anything that can impact you. Then you've got that influence that sits inside that circle of concern, and that represents the things that can potentially affect you. So they might not be completely within your control, but you can have some sort of influence. Now, this could be in how you react, as we said already. This could be your work ethic. It could be how you communicate with other people, or it could be how much effort you put in to achieving what you want to achieve. Then you've got the circle of control. So again, this is the smallest, but this represents the things that you've got that direct control over. Now, these are your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors, your choices. As we say, you can't control how someone else behaves or acts, but you can really control how you respond. So it's back to that values piece at the beginning. That's your price tag. That's what's important to you. Now, why this matters is if we focus our energy on that circle of influence and control, but sometimes, like, how many times do we focus on the weather? We already says at the beginning, we were talking about it as a chat, but again, we moan about the weather. Well, we do in Scotland, probably not so much anywhere else. It's either too hot, too cold, but again, I can't control that. So that's me just putting stress on myself that I don't need to. If we understand our circles, we can reduce that stress because we're letting go of those anxieties about the things you can't control. And then we can focus on really that circle of influence and control. So again, take your power, choose how you react, choose how you act, and think about how you really approach different situations. If we focus directing our energy here, we can make a difference and have that more positive outcome. If I think about what Sylvia said there, focus on the things and take those small steps. What Joe said last, we need to celebrate those small wins. Sometimes we can't see our way through, but if we focus on those small gains, that's the key thing. Notice it, don't judge it, name it, as Celine said, and really think about it. It will pass. Now, these aren't static, these circles. They may overlap. There may be some sort of overlap between that influence and control, and situations can change as well. The important thing is being aware of the things you can and can't control and focus on what brings you the most power. And that's what will help you navigate your life and your career as well. Now, what we want to do is look at how we really, oops, I've moved too far ahead there, how we increase that circle of control. So this can be very powerful because it helps us focus and influence and adapt. Now, even when things are shifting round about you, this can really make a difference. So it's thinking about that empowerment. So what do you have the power for? Now, as a lot of people said at the beginning, it can be quite overwhelming when we think about change. But that circle reminds you you're not powerless. Identify what you can do. Now, that might be getting habits into place. It might be thinking about your values, thinking about how you react. But it's really just thinking about, right, how can I take action? What can I actually do? Focus and prioritise. So, look, we lose focus, and a few people said that. That's when you start to lose focus, when things change and you don't really know what you're doing. You don't know where to put that energy or prioritise. So just focus on the things that's going to help you. Be kind to yourself. Look at how you adjust those routines, or maybe you need to change your perspective. All of these are within your control, and that's how you adapt depending on the situation. Again, reduce stress. Do these things you love. Look, I love the fact that you can all tell me different things that you love doing. You need to know the thing that works for you. You need to know the things that reduce that stress. because that's the thing that will help you when you come back is focus. Take time away from your desk. Don't just sit in front of your desk all day. Or if a problem, they say a problem shared is a problem halved. Like what Joe spoke about is talking to someone. Now, for me, the more we experience these things, the stronger our resilience gets. So I always think about it like a boxing match. That first hook comes, you don't see it coming, but you'll remember it the next time. Think about your corner. That's where I rest and recover. So again, acknowledging that some things you can control, some things you can't, but how can you focus and shift more in a positive way? And look, a lot of changes, and we see current changes in the world, we can't control the outcome. We can control our reaction. So focus on the things that are within your control, and that will really help you feel more empowered and prepared to handle change no matter what it is.
Excellent, which leads us nicely onto this. We're going to talk now about empowered communication. So far today, we've spoke a lot about what change feels like, and then also where to focus our energy when we're going through those times where we feel uncertain. So the next piece that we're going to talk about now is how we communicate through change. And this has already popped up in discussions that we're having in the chat, which is great. Empowered communication when it comes to change is not about pushing back on people and pushing back on the change or challenging those decisions. What empowered communication is about us asking questions that allows us to get the clarity needed within those moments. And that enables us then to stay engaged rather than shutting down and feeling overwhelmed. So we will be sharing a resource with you when it comes to this so that you can go away and read it and get a bit more a detail on this. But to help you understand, let's first of all consider this question. What's one question you'd wish you felt confident asking Jordan a change in the past? Let's think about it. What's one question that if you could go back again now, you'd want to ask and you wish that you felt confident asking at that time?
That's quite a big one, Joe, I think.
Hmm. It is. Want to really consider now and reflect back.
Yeah. Any for you?
Probably for me is getting to that what it means for me, but also for other people around me as well. Because that would be something that I'd be highly focused on in change, is not just how it's going to affect me, but also the people around me. So it's getting that level of detail, which then enabled me to be able to pass that on to other people and help them be able to get through the change easier. I
Yeah,
think that's one for me. That's quite key there.
yeah. And I think Naga agrees. Yep. And I
Yeah,
think the why really resonates with me, David, as well. I think sometimes that's where maybe I'm in a leadership position. I'm maybe known more than others, but it's making sure that I'm explaining the why. If I've got a team, for example, why? Or it could be, why is this happening to me? Is Ola said, and yeah, why are we doing this? And yeah, don't just accept it. It's asking, wait, why? What's the reason?
yeah,
I
exactly.
love that what
Yeah,
Rachel says there. What does the end result look like? Yeah, because if you can see it, it gives you something to focus on and something that it seems more like it's in your reach. So I love that.
exactly. Because one thing that all of these have in common is we're seeking clarity, exactly. And the one popping up there, what am I leaving behind? It's all about getting that clarity in place because then that helps reduce that uncertainty that comes with change and
Mhm.
enables us to be able to stay more engaged. So yeah, it's all of these different things that we're thinking about now is going to help us in that moment. So the next question would be to you all then, is think about what benefit that would have brought if you'd have asked that question and just consider that to yourselves because that's what's going to help you now in the future push past anything that's blocking that and say,
Yeah.
no, I need to do this because this is the benefit that it's going to bring me. So
Think for
some,
me. Oh,
sorry, go
sorry,
on,
Joe.
Ali.
On you go. I was just thinking for me, look, you've got to feel empowered. And I think that's how we communicate. If we don't feel empowered, we're not going to communicate. So I think it might be just, yeah, help me understand this. It might
Yeah,
be that you just don't understand. That might be a really good question just to ask to start with. Or what does it mean? And quite a lot of people have said that. What does it mean? Or as Sylvia says, why? What are the benefits? What will I gain
Exactly.
from this change?
Exactly. Exactly. And there are some tips that will help you feel more empowered
Yeah.
to go away and ask these questions in the future. And the first one is just recognize the value of your questions.
Yeah.
So it stops us asking sometimes because we think it's
Mhm.
irrelevant or not important. No, your questions are important,
Yeah.
very important, because what it then helps you with is that understanding, which is key
Yeah.
when it comes to it. Finding the right people is also important because those are the people that are going to help and support and give you those answers that you need. And then shift your perspective when it comes to asking questions. People sometimes feel like asking questions is a sign of weakness when it's not at all. It's a way of taking control in those moments so that you can then feel comfortable being able to participate moving forwards. And then also don't be afraid to follow up questions. You might not get your initial answers might not soothe your concerns in those moments. So don't go be afraid to go back and ask some more questions afterwards as well, because it's then us all together seeing that there is benefit to asking these questions. And if we recognize the these tips and recognize that it's going to help and support us, this is what's going to make us feel more empowered in the future to go away and proactively ask the questions we need to help us during these times of change.
And look, I agree, Joe. I think for me, it's you're not challenging the change, you're
Yeah,
seeking that clarity. That's the key. You want to reduce that uncertainty, but you want to stay engaged. Now, I've shared the little resource there for you. So if you click on the resource, there's just some tips there to help you thinking about these questions. So just what can you influence right now? And I think that's the key thing moving forward. Now, I can't believe it, we're at the end. So I realised it just came to 11 o'clock. So if you have to go, then no problem at all. I just want to thank everyone for taking the time this morning. For me, it's just thinking about recognising your own emotions. Just remember, yours won't be the same as someone else. Be patient. Look, this takes time. Change is it's coming, whether we like it or not. It does take time and focusing on what we can control rather than what we can't. Use that values, use them as your moral compass. What's going to guide you to help you show up the way you want to? And ask those questions. It's okay to ask questions. That's going to give you that clarity and that way forward. And remember, one step at a time. Celebrate those small wins. That's the key. Now, me and Joe are going to hang about. If anyone wants to ask us questions, we're more than happy to, once we've finished recording, take you off mic or we can put your camera on. It's entirely up to yourself. But if you want to stay on and ask questions, let us know what you think. We'd love to hear your thoughts. So there is a little QR code you can scan. So we would love to hear what you thought of the webinar. And please feel free to stay on and ask questions. So if anyone has got any, you can pop them in the chat or you can ask. Oh, thanks everyone.
thank you.
Oh, glad you thought it was insightful.
And thank you for getting involved as well
Yeah,
and adding
look,
some
look, the
further
chat's
value.
been great today. I'd say this is probably one of the most busy chats we've had. So
Yes.
thanks everyone for making it interactive because sometimes it can be a challenge when you can't see or hear people. But
Mhm.
if anyone does want to stay on and ask questions, I'm just going to pause the recording. If you want to stay on and ask questions, for me, it's no problem.